Good morning, everyone. It's a beautiful day out here now. It was raining earlier, but the sun came out just in time for the Secretary of Housing and Economic Development to come to Revere to listen to the mayor, Department of Economic Development Head Director John Festa, and a number of other city officials, the city planner Frank Stringy, talk about the city's vision for future development and to show them the development opportunities that exist down here at the beach. We're going to go from here at this point and listen to the conversation with the mayor and some words from the Secretary of Housing and Economic Development.
Sorry. And Richard Avenue is what's referred to as the North Lot.
Right.
We have a proposal now. They came before site plan review.
That's right in front of the building.
A little bit further coming south.
Okay.
And there is a proposal with a carnival. Okay. There's a portion of that land that came before site plan review for a proposal of 194 residential units.
Right.
2 buildings. A company from St. Louis, Covington, is coming in, and very unique style building. They're in the works. They're planning on, if everything goes well, which continues to go well, in the fall of this year. So we're very excited about that in the first
They would start as early as this fall?
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, they said they wanted to break ground.
The Eurovest designation?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That was Eurovest, Mr. DeGangi.
Yeah.
So that's one portion.
Right.
And we're also negotiating on another portion of that land for another type of investment as well, for residential as well, with another company. Okay. So that is in the works. But that's immediate.
Apartments involved?
Yes, yes. Now as you come closer, this area here, which is referred to Parcel H, there is a proposal for a hotel, for a 300 to 400 room hotel, with a residential of roughly 149 units. And that's supposed to be in the ground by September of this year, So we're very, very close on that. In terms of
a lot of construction going on these lots before the end of the year.
Before the end of the year.
Everything goes smoothly,
Yes.
Yeah, John can probably show you exactly where the buildings would be situated right out front here.
Actually, I can actually show you two as well. One of the things that we're doing is, this is the hotel component.
Right.
Okay, and these are the 2 residential components. If you're facing this here, it spans out, but there's roughly 400 rooms here.
Yep.
And then 149. And then retail in this area here as well. Okay, so we're excited about the mixed-use concept with the hotel, obviously, residential and retail components. We feel that obviously when this happens, it'll spur so much in the area as well. So we're very, very excited about this opportunity. And like I says, one key element is June 15th. And another element, what I mean by that is that they have to we put in milestones which they have to meet, which they are meeting, and in the ground by September 30th.
Right.
Okay, so
And the thing that, John, I think the thing that we want to stress too, we're not looking, because of how this structure looks and how the bridge looks and everything, this obviously not only has to pass our own local site plan, but it's got to also pass through the Revere Beach Design Board.
That's correct.
To make sure that everyone's in sync with the quality of the project that we want to see here. We don't just want people to throw up junk. You know, we want it to look really, really nice, and so we have some leverage on that with these private developers on how we're gonna make that happen.
That's correct. We wanted to make it unique looking, something different, something appealing, something very a lot of quality in the construction. And so when they come in, these developers that we're working with have been great, and that's why I think it's progressing so nicely.
Excellent. Okay. And I've been reading about Wonderland Ballroom in the paper.
Yes, what the proposal. You want to say this?
No, go ahead. You're doing fine.
Okay. The proposal here is to put a hotel. Okay, and roughly in the vicinity of anywhere between 200 and 350 units. And what they're doing now is they're going through the process of
People are feeling good about that even for the hotel here?
Yes. The way the market shows right now is you could almost put in another anywhere between 1,200 to 1,600 rooms, and it still wouldn't be overly saturated. Right. Yeah, the market is still that strong. So When they come forward, we had a meeting in the mayor's office. They showed a very preliminary design,
Yep.
but well received.
Yep.
Well received.
It's
So.
privately owned property.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And do they have some rights into the parking here, or is this their parking lot?
No. According
That's
to,
all MBTA.
That's,
I
yes.
believe.
All the parking was within
Gonna be in the-
the confines of
All right.
the actual construction.
Great. Now, what are you hearing about over there?
Yeah, let's take your attention over here. We can go to this.
No, please.
So as the mayor was saying, we have 35 acres here, Suffolk Downs, Chris's property.
Right.
And this, under our agreement with them, we have to complete a massive development plan for this site within 1 year.
So now, does that include this and that, or?
Yep, 35 acres of the area.
It includes those buildings.
Yeah, that's the end of the property.
So, quite extensive.
The component of all this is commuter rail line runs. You see it
Right.
right there. It's the Necco building. 500 square feet. Necco community building.
And that's actively used, yeah.
Yeah. With the rail line here, commuter rail line, we have worked with our legislators, money in exhibition bond grant for a study of commuter rail stop.
Where are the closest stops at this point?
Chelsea?
Yeah.
There's nothing in here. So people coming off from the commuter rail stop here and connect to the blue line with the downtown airport.
Right.
You have to get some sort of a people mover or something to get them over the blue line.
For a large mixed-use development and a lot of and you've heard discussion thoughts about
There's actually another professional Boston sports team that has an interest in this site as well. So that I'm not sure exactly for what, but I've been told that there's some interest here. So we'll see what that brings. But there's so much opportunity on this land. I think particularly once all this gets going, I think that land just becomes that much more valuable. It's just going to feed off each other.
Well, what you have to do is you get that a master plan and plan it properly and make sure the different various alternatives that could possibly happen because there's so much potential here. We're getting a lot of interest from a lot of different varieties of entities. So I think a key element is
And what's your sense of the time? Are they thinking, we got to figure out where we are with Suffolk Downs first, and then we can think about this?
They want to secure the license.
The gaming commission's on track for 6 months.
Yeah.
I think we're going to wait until something happens there before.
Right.
But you can see it as an extension of our TOD development. Massive transit-oriented development.
How does that mall work?
Well, we took a big hit, Stop and Shop. They came out, now they're consolidated. Now we're doing a big, 60,000
But I'd say if you imagine 10 years from now, what's happening here, that's a pretty low density use of that site. I imagine something very different there too in the economic.
That could play into this
absolutely.
very nicely.
Absolutely.
However that ties in. There's a lot of different visions as to what could possibly happen Maybe tying in with the master plan of this site.
Right. Absolutely.
It was originally part of the, that was part of.
It was.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, depending upon what goes on here,
That
that's
was
no
the park.
longer
Yeah,
highest and best use over there.
That piece, yeah, that's where that piece came from. I've been around so long. I've been around too long, I know everything.
Right.
So now, as you're going through this
Couldn't
community,
get a piece of
Yeah.
are you like, from a state level, compiling, like in other words, like 3 weeks from now, somebody comes into the state of Massachusetts and says, I'm looking for 35 acres, that's it, for X, Y, and Z. Is this part of the whole process?
Yeah,
where
so
you're
it's a little,
identifying,
it's an evolution of some things we've been working on. You know, we started, so the approach that we've taken for a few years now is that it's just really helpful to sort of sort out the state by looking at where are the places that, and identifying in advance the places where it makes most sense to grow. Just for, as you say, so if a developer comes in, if a company doesn't come in, and we don't say, oh, somebody wants 100 acres, where do we go? You know, have we thought about that in advance? So we've, and the consistent theme all along is find places and do three things. One is the community wants to see something happen. Because our view has been, we're in favor of growth and jobs and housing, but we're not gonna get the reputation that we push it on communities and twist their arm. So if you see, we're very proud of what we've done over the last 6 years in terms of new project development. But we're also proud of the fact you won't find a single community in Massachusetts who said, Governor Patrick, you know, jam that in on us. If community's not interested in it, we don't push it. So community's got to want it. It's got to make sense to us, you know. So whether that's transit-oriented development or being near where the jobs are already, or various criteria that it makes sense to us. We're not saying, hey, I got 100 acres out in the woods that I think is great. You'd have to build a new highway to it, but something that makes sense to you locally, to us, and then to the marketplace, so that we're not kidding ourselves about we're going to zone something and wait for the developers to come. And we know that if we talked to the marketplace, they'd say, nobody wants to be there. Don't kid yourself. So the three things. So this is a perfect place. You want to do this. Revere has been, even before your tenure, this is a place we want to grow. And so looking for places within communities you want to grow makes a lot of sense to us at the state, and we know there's market. So we've been, early on we started doing that with what we call growth districts, and actually this was one of the first growth districts here. It was just a way, we picked 20 places around the state where we thought all those three factors were present, and we have, and a lot of good things have happened in those places. Some of them we've made a public investment, and the private investment is already following, like Assembly. I don't know if you've been over Assembly Square lately.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much. I mean, it's just amazing. They're building a new neighborhood there.
Yeah.
So that's happened. And other places like here where we've made the public investment, and the market's got to come back a little more, but we're seeing it coming. It's going to be, this year we'll start to see that match of private investment. And so we're kind of building on that, and in particular right now, I think that as we look around the state and where those opportunities are, I think that there's an awful lot of them in these cities right just north of Boston. And so we're looking at these 7 communities, sort of from Somerville east out to here, and then in the East Boston and Charlestown neighborhoods as well. And thinking if they're looking, sort of taking a second harder look at what things have happened, because we see good things happening already, and maybe where we ought to be paying even more attention. Because I think for these communities, even though they're not, when people talk about where's development hot, people talk about Boston and Cambridge. I knew some stuff before I came out to visit, but just coming out to visit, it's amazing how much stuff is happening, and how much private investment is here, how much private development interest is here. So the development community, I think, is noticing what's happening, but the public is not, and we think part of it is just raising the perception of that, and as you say, for companies to talk about how to make the case for companies locating here, so that when a company says, oh, I want to be in Boston or Cambridge, saying, well, hey, how about being right next door? So that's we're doing that for the communities. Frankly, we're also doing it for our sake as a state, because the governor and I think that if we want to we have an opportunity. The economy's recovered better than the rest of the country in Massachusetts, and we're actually, in a lot of ways, we're on a roll. We have a lot of great technology companies, life sciences companies want to be here. But frankly, they're starting to crawl on top of each other in Boston and Cambridge. And if the only places they can grow are in Boston and Cambridge, we're going to lose the momentum, because you can already see the rents are going up. It's getting harder to build new. There'll be some growth there, but we really need to bring, we think, to really capture the opportunity that we have and the excitement about companies wanting to be here, figure out some way to get everybody. We're 5 miles from Boston? It's a crazy small distance.
Right. Yeah, I mean, as the crow flies, less than that.
Right. So to say, look, at rather when you're talking about Boston, so we've seen a little of that change in attitude for Somerville. Right. We've seen over the last 10 years that companies and people who may have thought they want to be in Boston and Cambridge are now getting comfortable. Somerville's interesting as well. So to continue that and then look at all these opportunities across the board, and that are places, whether it's apartments. I mean, the apartments you're talking about, for just as nice and just as big an apartment here, it's probably going to be half, 2/3 the rent of a downtown Boston apartment.
Right, that's correct.
And so that's a huge, if we're trying to keep young talent here, that's a huge opportunity.
And you have them right here on the blue line, which is the goal, I'm sure, one of the reasons why you guys funded this, to keep the traffic down that's flowing in and out of Boston.
And so in an interesting way, so you've got so one of the things that happened in terms of the perception of people, right now the red line for the tech community, the red line is really their anchor. If you look, that's where the companies locate.
Kendall Square and all that.
Kendall Square, and then up, Central Square, Porter Square, Davis Square, down to South Station. That's where the companies locate, and the talent is looking for places, and the red line is where they're using that for a commute. So we've got an orange line coming here, we've got a blue line coming up here. There's absolutely no reason we can't make those same connections, and it's just you get wherever you want, 10 or 15. So one thing is to talk about how do we, assuming obviously, again, this is the direction you want to head in, but I think that how do we take advantage of these communities just north of Boston and Cambridge to capture some of that energy and excitement that's happening out there. And then if you look at the other, like what people talk about Silicon Valley, I mean, Silicon Valley is probably 50 miles long. So the idea that, can only happen in Boston and Cambridge is crazy. There's plenty. We need to get everybody involved. The other thing that I'm going to be pitching to you as part of this is that we have 351 cities and towns who are very proud of their individual character and their assets. And a lot of people ask me, what can the state do to promote Revere or Malden or Chelsea? And we're glad to talk to you about that, but we think that there's value not in coming up with a different pitch for each one of these communities, but to ask you, and you and I have talked about this, you already work very closely, and I know there's a good working relationship with municipal governments, but to say, to respectfully suggest maybe we'd be better off if we talk about selling all these communities together and add up what you have to offer collectively. You have a beach, they have something else, they have restaurants, they have all these and to sort of to work with you to create some positive excitement about the future, not for 7 different times, but just one sort of what's happening.
I totally believe in regionalization. I mean, and anything that, I meet regularly with Jay Ash over in Chelsea and Jim McKenna over in Winthrop, and from time to time with Gary Christensen in Malden and Judy Kennedy and Lynn, and we know that we're, there's not a fence between our communities. We have to think more more regionally as time goes by, you know. And you said something that it kind of validates what I know and obviously members of my administration think, and I was so happy to hear you say it, is that developers are interested in here. It's the public perception that we need to get over, and that's something we've been really working on very, very hard, trying to get, you know, for whatever reason, there is a perception out there that, geez, I mean, if I can go to Cambridge, I can go to Revere, I want to go to Cambridge, if I can go to Somewhat. We're trying to change that.
Right.
We're trying, you know, this is I mean, you know, I scratch my head every day when I either drive along the beach or in situations like this, when you look out there and you got 3 miles of ocean front and say, why don't, you know, so, but I think, and based on what John has said, and what you probably hear from others, is that, you know, I think the development mindset is starting to change, as you recognize, but we just need to get the public to
and I think that's the best thing we can do to help advance the development. So you're doing what you can to make it a friendly permitting process, prompt and predictable permitting process. We're doing what we can on infrastructure, so this garage is an example of that. But you know, probably the next best thing we can both do to developers is say we will help create some buzz that so people want to live here, people want to work here, people want to open their businesses here. And so I think part of it also is to get a message that's around the fact that this is, you know, a new generation and a new demographic, and the people who come here, it's not because they're going to get on the blue line and go into Boston every day. I mean, it's great that they can get into the city whenever they want to, but not that model that they're going to be working here to say, you know, what are the opportunities, and some of our teams here that work with small businesses, and say, you know, these are places where you can live, work, and play, and it's great that Boston's right next door. But, you know, if you don't go into Boston for a week or two, everything's right here. So that's also part of the bringing everybody together. You mentioned regionalization and the governments working together. That's important. But also, we're just talking about, for example, just take a simple example, restaurants. That if you take all of the restaurants in these 7 communities, and then you can say of all the places you could go without ever having to go into the city. And it's an incredible, we've just been, you know, in different places, but every kind of ethnic cuisine you can imagine is represented here.
Right.
And great restaurants and all kinds of other amenities are here. So to talk about how this is a place that, it's great that it's close to Boston, but it's also,
in and of itself,
right
it's a destination,
it's
right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting, and I was talking to Jay Ash. Jay does Jay's you know, he's got a lot of great ideas. He does a thing over in Chelsea. I'm not sure the name of it. I know over in Winthrop it's called the Winthrop Playmakers. So it's like they have their own local arts, their own.
Right.
So Chelsea has their own version of that, where they have a playhouse where they, you know.
Right.
And so he does. I don't know if it's monthly or quarterly or however often he does it. Dinner and a play. So he'll get people that sign up. They'll get on a bus. They'll go to a local restaurant in Chelsea.
Right.
Then they'll go to a play. So that he's kind of promoting business in his city. So I just happened to say to him, I said, Jay, you must be running out of restaurants after a while, right? I said, why don't you bring the bus over to Revere? You can use some of our restaurants. So he said, well,
so I will encourage him to do that as well.
Yeah, so, you know, he said, well, why don't you get a bus and come over and watch a play? Then you can bring, you know.
Absolutely.
So, but I mean, I think things like that, you know, could work amongst each other. You
so
know,
we tried, the one experiment we tried in this regard is there are 5 communities up just a little further north of Boston, along Route 3 from 128 up to 495. So Burlington, Bedford, Billerica, Chelmsford, and Lowell are the 5 communities that touch on Route 3 between 128 and 495. So originally Burlington came to me and said, as I mentioned earlier, hey, we think there's some cool things going on in Burlington. We want to attract more companies. We still think that tech companies think of Waltham first and us second. But we think we have as much to offer as Waltham. Would you help us think about how to talk ourselves up? And I said, well, I really don't want to do it for one town, because then, you know, I've got like 350 people are going to say, how can you do it for them? So I said, but if you would be willing, if all 5 of your communities, and I had the same vibe, in other words, I knew that town managers were reasonably cooperative, and they had done some sewer things together and other stuff they worked together. And I said, if all 5 communities, if you will agree to work together as a team we'll put some money into building the brand and helping you to market. So they've done that for 2 or 3 years now. They call themselves Middlesex 3. But again, when you look at restaurants, when you look at educational institutions, when they can talk about all the assets the 5 of them have together, or innovation companies want to be with other innovation companies. So one of the things they say, well, who's there? Right? So if you can have a list that's all the companies that are across those 5, there's actually an impressive. It's really an A list of companies that are across those 5 communities, so they can sell them too. So that's where they're very happy about that, and that's worked pretty well. So where there's something like that, is the way the 7 of you team up and talk about, and that way, anytime, can we get it? And my pitch to you would be that it actually is good for Revere or individuals. But if you get in a place where anytime a good thing happens, a new company locates here, a new hotel goes up, a new restaurant opens, that is something you can sort of all take credit for and promote, get some buzz about it, whether that, to think about whether that might be the best way to raise the profile as part of this thing.
Sure. We're talking about this site. Some people, would think I'm crazy. Still think I'm crazy. But I used to, before we started talking of the revolution and talking about other possibilities, I used to think, that I guess following it after the Emmanuel College model, where now Merck is in the back there, and if you could ever, where colleges are running out of space, maybe they need a campus somewhere, but to bring in like a Merck or something that can create its own kind of separate industry, and then change some of the housing. We've got some. You walk down Shirley Ave with us. I mean, a lot of that area could really use some revitalization, and turn that housing as a result of something like that. But this, I don't know. I mean, I think John mentioned a master plan. I think a lot of what we have to do is think about, okay, what do we want here, or what could the potential uses be, and then start.
So that's part of it. If you've done that homework, then it puts us in a position that when we're talking to companies who are interested in here, and then we can start, just getting you on the short list, or we just take a look at this. The other reason to think about the 7 communities together is also, so for example, if there is a Merck, to use yours, and the truth is they look at this site and for whatever reason it's not perfect, you should want them to go to Chelsea before they go to the South Shore or Metro West, right? You know what I mean? The reality, I would tell you that you should want that.
Yep.
Because the more that companies like that are in this neck of the woods, then the companies don't just think of as their neighbors as the ones who are exactly in the same community. If the more companies like that up here, then the next company is going to say, oh, okay, well, I can talk to those guys. Why do they like it here? They can get the talent. It's easy to get in and out of. All right, we can make that case that it's a great place, but if they've seen a similar company make the decision, that makes it a lot easier for them to make the same decision. And so we can, I think, to get it started on this side of the city.
I mean, if good things happen in Chelsea and good things happen in Lynn, it means eventually good things are going to happen here. If you see them going to decline, chances are that's going to happen here too. So,
well, and as I say, if you take the average person today, you live in one town, you work in a separate town, and your favorite bar and restaurant are in a third town, probably. Yeah. So, if that's what it's not. If the company opens next door, it actually, for a fact, now there's people with disposable income are going to be spending something.
We're in constant contact with the directors of economic development, like in Lynn, Chelsea, and Malden, Winthrop, really working together. And whether it's help in joining an economic development summit, or just in cooperation, it's been very, very positive.
Well, that's the other reason I like this area. Is the Massachusetts is the 3rd most densely populated state in the country, and people are very protective of their quality of life here. So it means for a lot of cities and towns, they agree in theory that Massachusetts needs to keep growing, needs to add jobs, needs to have housing, but they're not sure they want it to happen in their community. And there's just a lot of ambivalence about that. So that's part of the reason that we did the Growth District Initiative, to start to say, listen, we're not going to twist your arm, but we're looking for volunteers, if you will, for people who say, no, you know, the perspective of our community is new jobs, new housing is going to be better for our community, and people we can partner with. And it's really true across these 7 communities, as you've seen. You must get the same feeling, John.
Yes.
There's a common, you not only are willing to work together, which is great, but there's really a common perspective on the future, which is you, all of you that I've talked to, you know, would love to grow, and you see that as making a better future for your community. So I was up in Malden earlier this week, I think, and no, I guess it was last week. Yeah, and so, for example, I was walking around town with Mayor Christensen, and he has 3 projects that are going to total about 500 new apartments right in the downtown. I mean, we literally walked the 3 blocks around and saw all the sites. And so as we're walking around, I said, well, so tell me honestly, you know, you're very bullish on this and you're excited to show me these things. Aren't there people grumbling in town about, oh, what's all this new building going on? This is, you know, change. We're nervous about this. And he said, and I have to say, everybody met on the tour, there was not that kind of pushback that you would see in a typical Boston neighborhood, right? Or in a Massachusetts neighborhood. That you know, whether it was the shop owners, the Chamber of Commerce, city council members, everybody's saying, no, this is, the more people we have here, the more vitality. It's going to bring people on the street. It's going to help our restaurants. This is great for downtown. So, and I see that, you know, you and I have talked about it the same way, and I know you feel the same way, and a lot of feedback from Revere in that same direction. So that makes you great partners and makes us particularly interested in partnering with you as well, because we can see that you share our view that you got to keep trying to move forward, and that's the way to be successful. If you try to stand still, you're going to start falling behind.
Exactly. Well, it's like businesses, right? I mean, once businesses stop growing, there's only one other way to go. So got to keep pushing ahead. So, well, awesome.
Next up, we're going to be going downstairs, and we're going to show you footbridge and MDC facility. Yep.
As the secretary, I think they may want to do. Did you want to do an interview with the secretary down there when we get down there? I think they may want to do something. Okay.
Yeah, after when you get to the other side, when you're done with the. It's my great pleasure to be standing with the Secretary of Housing and Economic Development, who's touring Revere, particularly the Wonderland Station today, and talking about some of the economic development opportunities going on in the city. What are your thoughts about what you've heard this morning?
Well, it's exciting to see. You know, this is a project that Governor Patrick and I have been working with the city on for a bunch of years now. And we've made some great progress with this great new garage and the footbridge. But we try very hard to find places where we can make public investments that are going to be matched by private investments. And of course, that's been hard to do with the Great Recession that's held us all back. So, but I'm here today because we're now seeing the signs that private investment is coming. People are interested in building apartments here, building hotels here, and so really learning more about what that's going to look like. But it feels like this is really the seed that we planted a few years ago is now finally starting to grow.
As a long-time resident, let me tell you, man, it's been a long time coming, and I'm so happy.
You know better than me, even, yes. So my 6 years were dropping the bucket, right? Yeah.
And I know we're here promoting the city of Revere today, but there was an interesting concept, that, if you will, that you introduced when we were talking earlier up on the roof about regionalization. You want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so what I was just pointing out is that if you look at these communities immediately north of Boston, not only Revere, but Chelsea and Malden, there's a lot of exciting things happening. And in fact, I'm taking a sort of tour over the next couple of months of all 7 of these communities right north of Boston. And they all have a lot in common. They have great transportation access to the big city, but they're also in their own right great places to live and work and play. There's new businesses opening here all the time. There's new places to live, much more affordable than in Boston and Cambridge. And a lot of interesting amenities. For example, you've probably seen just the growth of restaurants around here and the diversity of restaurants. It's been wonderful to see. So we think there's a real opportunity. People know about Boston and Cambridge, but we ought to be talking up what's happening here north of Boston as well. It's very exciting, and it's the kind of thing that young people looking to start a business or work at a tech company, this should be a great place for them to be.
And being the Secretary of Housing and Economic Development, and you're traveling the state, give us a sense for how you think things are going.
Yeah. Well, what we're seeing overall, Massachusetts is really doing very well. We've recovered a lot stronger and faster than the rest of the country, and that's great, particularly because the last couple of big recessions knocked Massachusetts down, and it took us a long time to get back up. So the fact that we're getting back up on our feet this time faster is really good news. But that is overall for the state. And what we're seeing is some real regional differences, Boston and Cambridge doing well. And the challenge is that some of the places that are having the fastest recovery are the places, candidly, that were doing the best before the recession. And when you go out to Fall River and Springfield and so forth, the places that had challenges before, they have the longest way to go to come back. So we feel, even though these communities, take a Revere, take a Chelsea, even though they haven't always benefited from the economic activity in Boston and Cambridge, we think this is the time to change that, and that's really the strategy here. How do we get all that economic energy that we're seeing in Boston and Cambridge now? We think it should want to spill up this way and really help these communities as well, and we want to do what we can to encourage that.
That's great. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you've got to head back for some other meetings with the mayor. We'll catch up with you later on this afternoon after your tour of Broadway.
Great, Ed, thanks very much.
All right, thank you. Well, we've just finished our interview with the Secretary of Housing and Economic Development. From here, they're going to go back to the mayor's office and have some meetings with the mayor to talk about some more development opportunities and plans that they have. Following that, there's going to be a 3 o'clock tour that will take place down Broadway, where the Secretary will get to meet a number of the business owners within the Broadway district to talk a little bit about business development in that area. And then following that, there will be a reception with the Secretary later on to talk a little bit more and get more input on people's ideas. So we look forward to catching up with you then. Take care.
All right.
Okay, so,
Oh, again?
Gary, this is the secretary. And we also have Sabir over here. Sabir, great to see you.
Great, nice to meet you.
One of our local business owners. Is Sue.
Very excited I am about the stuff right at the station.
Now is this
For downtown area. This is what we refer to as the plaza area. And a lot of the developments that are taking place this corner here, 2 blocks down.
right?
And a lot of these developments, like we were talking about the storefront improvement program,
Right.
we're really going to try to focus our efforts on
Right.
these buildings across the street.
Right.
So there's a lot more of conformity, a lot, as I stated before, unity, and we've been getting a very positive response from our business owners. But these businesses, this one is 15 years, as you can tell by the size. For the size.
Yeah.
And, so it's a, but we're also going to be dealing with sidewalks.
Yeah.
A lot of the aesthetic approaches.
And now, so the
Substation that opened up.
Yeah.
From there. That was the building that we were referring to as a gentleman, a major investment in making something that was in a horrible condition.
Yeah.
And Ed, would you say the building I'm talking about with the police substation?
Oh yeah, with the new substation is.
How
Oh
is it-
yeah,
I
it
mean,
was.
What it looks today compared to what it was
Incredible. Yeah.
prior.
A huge improvement. You're
Huge
right.
improvement. And,
well, that encourages you to keep going too, because when you see that private people are willing to invest private dollars right now.
that's correct. That's correct, and that's what we feel. But a lot of these businesses, like I said, are on the Broadway Advisory Group, so we are getting input from them. So like we're, you know, we do have a plan on what we think and what should be done. But most importantly, is it's a mutual respect and mutual input. So honestly.
So now do you long time we have a newer section?
As we go down on the up, there's going to be a couple down here that are new, and there's going to be a couple a little bit further down on in the plaza area. Yes. The smaller type businesses.
Sure.
You know, there's one that opened up over here. It's an insurance company that just opened up that made the building. It's a small building, but when we go by it, kind of made it very aesthetically pleasing, doing very well, prospering. That's what we want. You know? We're also in the process of working diligently, maybe to get a Starbucks. Broadway. I mean, I was asked to do that by a lot of citizens. So I've been working on
Chelsea now.
Yes. So I think they're.
Well, that's interesting. Is that you and I? You should give me a call on that.
Okay.
I was thinking of calling the whoever the regional manager is for Starbucks.
Okay.
About talking up the demographics of some of our urban communities. It'd just be interesting to compare notes. I'm sure they must do a lot of tracking. So I was going to talk up whether or not over here want to be considered for another Starbucks. But also, I'd be fascinated to hear what they have to say about it. Sure. Because I'd be interested to know what their method is. You know, they must track a lot of demographic data.
Now, this is
they must be watching.
without question. Without question. We did a learning process. This is the parcel that was just purchased by Neighborhood Development Group.
Oh, right here in the corner.
This right here in the corner.
Okay.
And this is going to be torn down. This is the old Rizzo restaurant. And what they're doing here, Mr. Secretary, is they're doing first floor retail. And then they're going to be doing senior housing, 55 and over. And quite honestly, as we go a little bit further, they're in negotiations to possibly purchase this site. So if they purchase this site, I mean, they come in with a preliminary plan of the concept of design for just the site. But if they get this, obviously it'll be much different. Right. Okay. And they can do a lot more if they get the property as well.
Right.
So this is 48 units. 48 units of senior housing. But I'd like to stop here for a minute because also here, this building here, is the church. This is the building that very old building. Obviously, it's all horrible condition. There's going to be significant investment here as well. So we get back to one aspect of investment. That's going to be actually a Harley Davidson shop where they sell service rentals. For a while. And we want to try to make it significant along with this. So this whole block right here, Mr. Mayor, I was just telling the Secretary, this whole block across the street will be significantly changed in the next 6 to 8 months.
And I think they're negotiating on this building too.
Yes, they are. Yes, they
Which would be great. And then if you just go past the 7-Eleven down there, there's another piece of property, kind of blighted, that's gonna, I think they're putting what, about $1 million or more, right?
Investment dollars?
Yeah.
Yes, about $1.3 million.
$1.3 million that building. So hopefully, in the not too distant future, we'll see all new construction coming up there. The right as you get into our central business district. So we're excited about that, you know.
What I'd like to do is I'd like to turn around, walk back, and we'll go past City Hall, and I'll show you the plaza and also the building that I'm referring to. Okay?
I just called Danny Roberto to see if he was in. I wanted to.
So now do you, getting to be that time, you got a new budget coming out?
Yeah.
You feel like you know what you're getting from the city?
Yeah, pretty much. It's a net loss of about $220,000. I was just whining to $750 about it, you know. So, but you know, I mean, I know everybody's got to pull in there, we're trying to do the best of what we have.
Actually, it's always supposed to be a hit.
Was he? Is your property tax base cut up aggressive?
Yeah, our new growth might be $500,000 this year, so which obviously next year I'd like to see it better. And then obviously going forward from there. So, but
Have you have a local hotel in Bialeki?
yes, yeah, and we took that bump up to the local option to go up.
Right.
Yeah,
that seems
So-
like it would be.
So maybe we should tell the secretary.
We're putting everything together. That looks like that would be a good tool for you. It doesn't
Oh,
work
yeah.
that great for every community.
Yep.
But I mean, the new hotel would be big.
Be great.
Property tax and
Between the rooms tax
Yeah.
and then presumably if there's a restaurant, the extra meals tax. So,
right.
yeah, a lot of good stuff. What were you saying?
No, I was going to say, he has to try some type of pastry from Roberto's afterwards.
I just called to see
You
if
have to
Danny
try a
was in
piece of
there.
pastry from there. You'll definitely go back.
Yeah, he's not in. Otherwise, I would have suggested we bounce in there for 30 seconds, but he's not there. So. Okay, is this going to be aired on Revere Cable right here?
Yes.
Danny Roberto, we were looking to go into your place, so you know. Again, just another one. Like I say, the country is built on small business. It's not all big business that drives the economy, and
No, and that's been a very important part of our strategy. I mean, for a lot of state level economic development departments, their governors tell them to go out and find we don't think that's very productive. We want to be a place where people want to start small businesses, and a place where people feel like if things are going well, it's easy to grow their business.
right.
But we're really not. We don't do a lot of time chasing big companies and asking them to that's what.
Oh,
headlines.
I like him a lot.
Lands a company with 300 jobs. You drill down and see what they had to promise.
He's a nice gentleman.
It's really nice. A better deal shows the investing in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of the reason why we're doing what we're doing here with whatever limited funding we have is to, drive the small businesses down here.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, and then also, if you look at it the other way, which is that there's been this amazing change, really, when you look at it over the last 30 years in the United States. That used to be a business would set up, right?
Yep.
And then you would go to where the business was. I got to move to get my job.
Right.
Now, it's almost exactly 180 degrees, and the companies are choosing where to open their offices based on where the people are and the talent is.
Yeah.
And so if you actually, by creating places where people want to be,
Yep.
that's actually business development.
Yep.
Because if you can say, look at all these people, the people you want to hire, look how many want to live in Boston, greater Boston. That's the number one. That's what for recruiting companies, that's the number one thing. What are you going to offer us? Well, before we talk about tax credits or anything, what I'm going to offer you is that you're going to find it easier to find all the talent you want here than pretty much anywhere in the world.
Right. You got a great labor pool. Great universities, people ready to go.
And they're
ready to go
happy
to work
here, and they'll stay here, and they're not going to jump ship. They'll stay with you even when it's time to raise a family. They'll stay here.
That's why I'm not so, a lot of people are very anti-residential development. And, it's not necessarily all negative. I mean, if you're,
That's our big pitch, actually, that, we said housing, people used to think of it as good from the state level, but not good for the community. And we say, if you look at it, actually, so many cases of more housing space than
yeah.
and especially downtowns, because you need the people walking into the town.
Yeah, this is a large area.
Right.
So the building,
Right.
they always going to try to change the name of this area.
significant investment across the street. We put sidewalks, and stairs, and making that a little more presentable. But the building that I really wanted to show you, this building here was in such a state, it was so deplorable. It wasn't really offering a lot of investment. The gentleman purchased it. We put the police substation right in this area here, because that was one of the major concerns of the business, to try to have a police presence on Broadway. But he really changed the whole aesthetics. And this is what we're looking to do, try to make it, give the owners incentives to, like I said, the sign program that we're going to have, storefront program. We can give incentives to much for the owners, so we can present some money and make an investment. It's a mutual benefit.
Now, is this new construction or rehab?
This is a rehab. And there's residential units.
Where were you showing me that?
The police station is coming down. And that's where we're going to be 51 units to 5. So it's not that down. And as we walk further down the municipal parking lot, we can get another 61 units. Yes, we actually on the side. That's a building that really just we can't even, it's too costly to even try to review anything on it. That's why that used to be big. So it doesn't look like they just kept it the way it is. I know, that's a good question.
The old bank yellow ball alarm there.
But he's getting, he's getting significant investments here. This is where we were talking about the two Harvard students are right here as well. Right. He also bought that building as well. That building across the street. He's really cleaned it up. He hasn't finished it, obviously. That was a building that a little bit and also the people that were renting there were not desirable. In a lot of ways, they were just drugs were in there and so forth. But now that's current. That's current. So it's going in such a positive direction. A lot of the buildings that you see as you're coming down here have been buildings that have been here for years. Years, as you can tell by the brickwork and the brick veneer.
Right.
And obviously, in today's times, it's more of a lot of very solid. We do. Buildings that have been there for quite a long time. United Bank, they used to be the Amber Savings Bank across the street. Right. They made a significant investment there. Brick veneer in the front, stone wall in the front. But these are some of the businesses that you're going to see that startup businesses with a little bit more diversity. As we come along here.
Hold on a second. What's the minute? Why don't you go say ahead of something? Another small business success story.
Please,
please, go right ahead, please.
Go ahead. The Secretary of Housing and Economic Development works for the governor, so I want you to look at some of our small businesses down here, and you guys have been a great business on Broadway for how long now? You've been here for what, 6 years? So they're really doing good. How you doing?
Is this coming back for you now?
In fact, there was it's sometimes called stippling around.
So but they've been great, and they actually very active in the community in terms of helping out when when we need something, different events and things like that. So they've just been great. So I just want to have the secretary have a chance to say hello. Take care.
Thank you so much. Karen. Next to the side.
It's a functional centralized The good news is, the good news for us is how much more we add up the years, you understand quality, migration, 100 years in this location. I get back to this
Powers, the bridge, their bridge maintenance has been here. They've been here. This has been a bank. Thanks for taking us. Great job.
Jerry, sorry. Oh, you know Jerry? He's wonderful.
John suggests we walk it just a little bit further, and then we'll turn around, and we're going to wind up here at Bialeki.
Right.
Just another little half a block, and we'll be So, I mean, if it were, now, okay, so this is my sale, and not that I'm, because you're not on the gaming commission, but if you were, my sales pitch would be, if it went anywhere else other than Suffolk, they're starting at a net job loss of about 300 people, because Suffolk will close, there's no doubt about it. And whereas they can save the industry, the horse racing industry, have that built upon, and obviously hire several thousand new people to service the casino and hotel. So it just, you know.
At a site that's used to seeing that scale of activity.
Yeah. I just said to Anthony, I said, Anthony, anybody ask you for a job lately? He goes, are you serious? He goes, every day. I said, I said, listen.
Be careful, sir.
I said, we're ready to go.
Watch out, sir.
Be careful, yeah?
I said, we're ready to go with our whole just dragging their feet. I said, so you know what my pat answer is now the last 2 or 3 weeks? When someone comes in and says, any jobs available? I say, yes, in fact, fill out an application. They say, oh, great. They fill, you know. Oh no, don't give it to me. Bring it to me, I'm a Nino in Boston, okay? Because apparently they've got an abundance of jobs. They don't see the urgency to get this thing done. Like, I don't get it. Like, just driving me. Well, I think it already has to a certain extent. You know, you got Dan Conley talking about a citywide vote as opposed to. And we're stopping here.
We're stopping here. We're going to cross and go back. But I wanted to just point this building out. This building is failing. I would say about 5 years old. It's there.
A little longer, but yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Significant investment here. This used to be a building that was run down as well. So the gentleman purchased it. The building with significant investment in offices, retail as well. We're happy.
You have the Cambridge Health Alliance, the first floor.
Oh, good.
There, right? Yeah.
Yes. So this is what we're looking to do. We're looking to the stage in the second. And then we got Companion's Restaurant, that's on it. That's a local restaurant. He made a significant upgrade in his building as well. So we're trying to, you know, do some things to show that we're being actively participating as well.
Yeah. Well, I think they have to go through the same.
They do.
You know, the people have to want it in order for them to.
But I'm just saying that the casino ones, I think, are sort of settled out.
Thanks.
And then just in the last few months, some guys have
Hotel.
turned it down. And I think most of them will go away, but there's sort of this flurry about where that might go up to a smaller facility, so there's more different options. But I think people are ready to go, right? I mean, now the gaming commission is practically under a lot of pressure. They said we're going to, be very deliberate and thoughtful about it, which is great. But I think people are sort of saying, let's get on with it now.
Right. Right. The legislation will have been enacted 2 years in November, so.
Right.
You know.
Right.
In the meantime, you still got people collecting unemployment.
Absolutely.
You know.
And this is the time
Yes.
add another lot to the fire of our recovery.
Yeah.
people say, well, I don't want to put all our hopes on a casino, a casino to bail us out. No, you know, it's not going to fail. I don't think anyone's looking at it as an economy saver. It's just another industry that we can take advantage of that could be hugely successful.
Right.
And,
offers different kind of jobs.
yeah, right. So, I don't know how much money they spent in here. That was our welcome.
Hey, Bob, how are you, my friend? Nice to see you.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate that.
Hey, Seth, how are you?
Good, very good. How are you, sir?
Glad to go. You saw what this was before. The Walmart, I'm going to get on the welcome and go way today. How are you doing? Very good, thank you. We get this whole area here. Hey, John. Well, how are you? You good? I'd like to see you, John. You okay? Mr. Durrell? It's a good pleasure. We get this area here. No, go ahead. No, stay there. We get this. No,
Okay, I'm standing here with John Fester, Director of Economic Development. John, it's been a long day, but a nice day, and we just took a nice long walk down Broadway. Can you give us some of your comments about how the day went?
It went very, very well. It was exciting to have Secretary Bialeki here to look at the many opportunities that we have in the city of Revere, and to just show them the many assets that we have. And we work very well with the state, and for him to come down and look at Broadway and to look at the beachfront and to look at a lot of different opportunities that we have, it was just exciting to have him here because it just shows that we have a good partnership with the state, and we're going to continue in the future.
Yeah. And he seemed very interested in all that he saw. Anything in particular that kind of caught his eye or imagination?
Well, I think he was very much concerned about what was happening at the TOD project and the Waterfront Square, and we showed him what is in the works there, and then he also wanted to look at the Broadway area to see if how the local businesses are doing, and how much diversity that we have here, and how exciting that is, and what we're doing as a city with Mayor Rizzo, doing a 3-year master plan for Broadway. So he was excited to hear some of the things we have in the works, working with the business community, and just excited about Revere in general.
Yeah. Now, I know a lot of this is about, kind of building the foundation, setting the works together. What's next in the process with the state?
Well, we want to keep our options open because what's happening right now is there's so many things happening in Revere could possibly happen this year. So when it comes to funding mechanisms, we want to make sure that we have the ability to be able to approach the state and to be able to work with them to provide certain incentives and certain types of funding that will enhance development in the city. And that's what we're trying to do. And Secretary Bialeki has been phenomenal to work with.
And one of the things I remember you mentioned when we were over at Wonderland earlier today is about the work that will be that will be starting this year. Tell us a little bit about those.
Oh, very exciting. There's one development that we're working with on Parcel H. They have to start construction by September 30th of this year. There's another milestone, June 15th. But we're very excited about that because that's a hotel development with a portion of residential development. And then we're also dealing with, on the North Lot, we're dealing with a company out of St. Louis, Covington, that's going to be going forward with another residential development as well. So what we're doing there is we're seeing residential, mixed type of use, residential, also a major retail, 50,000 square feet of retail that has to begin in September. So when I say that this is the year for Revere, I truly believe it.
Yeah, well, your lips to God's ears. I'm looking forward to it too.
Look forward to it. Thank you for having me.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Been the end of a long day. Mayor Dan Rizzo and Secretary Bialeki. Secretary, I'll start off with you. We talked earlier today. Since then, we've taken the tour on Broadway, and you've met with some of the businesses. What other thoughts do you have about today?
Well, I think it sort of confirms my suspicions that this is an exciting place where things are happening, and to see, one of the challenges of this Great Recession has been these neighborhood downtowns have really struggled. So to walk up and down Broadway with the mayor and to see a lot of storefronts doing good business and to talk to some of the owners, feeling very bullish about what's happening. It also seems to me there's a real good partnership between the businesses and the city. The other thing we like to see when we are making public investments is we like to see that the private sector is investing in turn. So when you walk up and down the street here, we saw some of the lighting and sidewalk improvements. That's public money that's invested. But we also see business owners investing in their storefronts and in their shops. So that's great. That's when things really happen, when both sides are working together.
And Dan, I know you've been working for a few years now. Remember the first luncheon that we had at, I think it was down the street at Companions, when you were talking about the revitalization of Broadway.
Yep.
And so finally today to be able to take a walk with Secretary Bialeki, what's going through your mind as we were doing that tour?
Well, I think it's great to have Secretary Bialeki here in the city of Revere and spending as much time with him and his staff here as he has. Really, the governor, the secretary have been terrific to work with, and it predates me. They work very, very well with my predecessor, Mayor Ambrosino, in bringing in a lot of public money that's helping us spur, I hope, what's going to be an awful lot of private investment. We're also sharing a lot of ideas about how we can improve our local economy right here in our central business district, and telling him what our ideas are, picking his brain about what his ideas may be on how we can improve upon that. But I think what you're going to see going forward is a real, whether it's through tax incremental finance agreements or some sort of public investment, there's going to be more of a public-private partnership that you're going to have to create in order to drive businesses into your respective communities. And so, as I say, it was terrific to be able to spend some time with the secretary that is committed not just to the city of Revere, but he's committed across the Commonwealth to make Massachusetts one of the top places to do business and to live, work, and raise a family. So it's been great.
Now, I know this is not the first time that the two of you have talked or that you've talked with the state, and this is the culmination of some discussions and planning. So where do we go from here?
Well, I think we're, both of the places we visit down near the beach and here, we're already on the same page. And as the mayor suggested, the state's already been making in some of the investments that have enabled the progress that we've seen so far with the city, of course. And so, but we're at a place, I think the mayor would agree, both down at the beach and at Wonderland and here, where there's still room to keep going. And in fact, we heard some of the mayor's plans about what the next steps are. So down at the beach, getting some housing starts, hopefully in the next few months, and a hotel start, one or maybe a couple hotel starts would be great. And here, things are looking good here, but there's still room for continued progress to have more businesses and to continue what we're doing to make this an even more attractive place. The other reason that we're here today is to talk with the mayor, and I know he knows that, but just as Revere Beach isn't just, a local attraction. It's a regional attraction, right? Thousands of people coming from all over. And Revere downtown and the restaurants here can be the same. This can be something that's not just a nice amenity for people in town, but it's something that people can want to come from all over to be part of this.
Amen.
Well,
Amen.
and just to follow up what the Secretary said, is that, we talked a little bit today about, how to maybe market our areas on a more regional type basis where, we're not just marketing Revere proper, right? We're marketing this whole general vicinity, Winthrop, Lynn, Chelsea, as an area, a larger destination because, I've always believed, and I've had these conversations with Jim McKenna and Jay Ash about how if their communities do well, chances are we're going to do well as a result of it. And I really, really believe that. And the Secretary is just reinforcing that he shares that belief and that, they're going to do whatever they can to help regions such as, may consist of 4, 5, 6, 7 communities and help them market those areas around the natural assets or the physical attributes that those communities have. So, it really, but that's the only way it works is when you have that type of partnership. We can't do it alone. We rely on our congressional delegation and certainly rely on the governor and his administration to help us along and help us do things because by ourselves we just simply don't have the resources or the financial wherewithal to be able to capitalize on these plans that we have. So, it's really anytime we can have the secretaries here for 4 or 5 hours. I'm a big proponent of that. So I'm very, very grateful for his stopping by today for sure.
Yeah, two things come to mind: is his strength in numbers and collective resources to help the overall community.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think we would both also thank Congressman Markey a great deal. You mentioned the federal support, and I think that's where we've seen around the state we have the greatest success, where our federal delegation and the president's been great, but the state and local, and where the three of us are lined up, we can just accomplish so much more.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, great. Thank you both very much. Thank you, Secretary. And thank you as always.
Always a pleasure.
Right. It's my pleasure to be standing next to Bob Upton, President of the Revere Chamber of Commerce. Bob, I know you've had some conversations or had some conversation earlier with the Secretary.
Yeah, I did. Very good.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
No, he's really excited about Revere. He likes the way the direction that Revere is going. And, of course, I'm excited with the Chamber of Commerce and the support that we get from the administration. Mayor Rizzo being a past president of the Chamber of Commerce, his administration is working well with us. And I think, as evidenced today, having the Secretary here, we all seem to be working on the same page, and we're just trying to improve the business climate here in Revere and the surrounding area. And it was just a really nice conversation. He brought all the folks from his own staff here as well. And so we had some really good conversations. I think they'll maybe shed some real light on opportunities for other business development within the city.
And as the president of the chamber, and I know you've seen an uptick in membership and so forth, I mean, you've got to be pretty excited about the business environment that's taking place right now.
I really am. I think it's great. It's a good environment, certainly with the administration being pro-business, as it seems it is right now. I think the economy improving the way that it is. I think with the potential for development at Revere Beach and also the potential for casino gaming at Suffolk Downs, I think that's also could be another shot in the arm. An opportunity for jobs for a lot of people in the community. So I think that's really bodes well for the community overall, but also certainly for the Chamber of Commerce. We have a very active board of directors of the Chamber of Commerce, and many people have really stepped up to the plate. They've been working with us to bring in new membership. We just finished the golf tournament that was quite successful. We had a lot of fun, more golfers than we've seen in years. And we had a lot of sponsors that stepped up to the plate, helped us to advertise and promote the event. They donated raffle prizes. So all in all, it was really, really good. It was a good time to be certainly in the Chamber of Commerce, and for me to be in the position that I am at this time. It makes it look a little bit easy, but honestly, we have a lot of people working behind the scenes to support us.
In your conversation with the Secretary, was there a message of any sort that you were trying to impart to him in terms of Revere and business within the city?
Well, I think the message that I was imparting to him was that it's good for us as a chamber to work with the city. In working together, we can get more things done. But I think, as importantly, Ed, the message he imparted to me was to work with other local communities in the area, because overall, regionally, this is really a good time now for us not only at the Revere Chamber of Commerce, but the East Boston Chamber of Commerce, the Chelsea Chamber of Commerce, and the Winthrop Chamber of Commerce, because we do multi-chamber events, because that is to the benefit of all of us in this area. So that part of the conversation was, I think, very exciting and illustrative of the type of support that he's willing to give to us in the community.
Yeah, collaboration seems to be one of the big messages I heard today in terms of the whole regionalization approach. And as you said, the Chamber and Revere with the East Boston Chamber have been doing that sort of thing for a while now.
We have been doing that for a while, certainly with your help as well, Ed. You've been talking to the businesses in the area, and I think it's a message of inclusion. I think it's really important that we do bring other sectors of the community to the business community, businesses at the Chamber of Commerce, for us to reach out to those people that are starting to develop their businesses. We have the Office of New Revere Immigrants that they're trying to find ways to develop their own businesses. The population shift has been significant in this, not only in Revere, but in the surrounding communities. And I think that it's to our benefit to include that population with the Revere Chamber of Commerce, because we at the Chamber want to reflect our community and the population in the area. And I think that's all to our benefit.
Yeah. Well, great, Bob. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Ed. I appreciate it.
All right.